Okay, it is 7:01. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm calling to order the meeting of the San Leandro City Council. Today is Monday, April 7th, and I would appreciate it, Madam Clerk, if you would take roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Aguilar,
Present.
Councilmember Azevedo,
Present.
Councilmember Bolt,
Present.
Councilmember Simon,
Present.
Councilmember Viveros Walton,
Present.
Vice Mayor Bowen,
Present.
and Mayor Gonzalez.
Present.
Thank you.
If you are able to join me by rising, please do so as we pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point in time, we have, just moving to announcements, we have the appointment and swearing in of a Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commissioner under item 10A. I'd love to move that up here, right in section 4, recognitions, if everybody's fine with that. Looking down Council Row, see no objection, so we will do that. As the public has heard before, the City of San Leandro conducts orderly meetings to fulfill its mandate. Discriminatory statements or conduct that would potentially violate the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964 and or the California Fair Employment and Housing Act, California Penal Code sections 403 or 415, are per se disruptive to a meeting and will not be tolerated. Please see our City Council Handbook and City Council Meeting Rules of Decorum for some additional information. Madam Clerk, your message.
If you would like to make a public comment during the meeting, you can do so in person or via Zoom. If you are present at the meeting, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the city clerk before the item is presented. If you wish to participate in public comment via Zoom, you can use the Raise Your Hand tool when the item is called. During the public comment session, speakers will be invited to speak and will have a set time to share their comments. A countdown timer will appear for their convenience, and when the time is up, the microphone will be muted. All raised hands outside of public comment will be lowered to avoid confusion. Once public comment is opened, hands may be raised to speak. There will be a 30-minute window for public comments, which will take place under item 7, public comments, as per the published agenda. After this time is up, the council will proceed with the rest of the meeting's agenda. If you have not had the opportunity to speak during the initial 30-minute period, there will be another chance to do so after item 12, City Council reports.
Okay, so at this point in time, we will move to item number 3 on our agenda. Is there a report coming out of closed session?
Thank you, Mayor. No reportable actions were taken in closed session this evening, but direction was provided to staff.
Thank you. So at this point in time, we will do both of our recognitions. First, we will issue our proclamation to declare April 2025 as National Autism and Awareness Month. And then we will follow that by our minute order regarding our commissioner nomination and vote. So let's begin with our proclamation. There you go. So that sounds so clear. So I'm going to hand this to you. You're taking pictures. I love it. There we go. So you're welcome to read along with us and say a few words. Here we have Autism Awareness Month in the city of San Leandro. It's something that we've talked about before at various meetings, in particular how a variety of community organizations support both youth and adults with autism. I think before we've called out East Bay Innovations as an organization that works with adults, and in particular, and celebrated Tarani for the work that they're doing, and other organizations. But you're here representing the city of the San Leandro Unified School District, right? And so we're very grateful for all the work that SLUSD and San Lorenzo Unified School District does in supporting children in San Leandro with autism. So I'm going to read this proclamation, then I'm going to give you a chance to say a few words in recognition. And by the way, for those that don't know, this is Diana Greenlee. Did I get that right? Diana Greenlee and James from James Monroe Elementary. Welcome to City Hall. So whereas autism is a developmental disability characterized by atypical development in socialization, communication, and behavior, and whereas children typically display autism symptoms before turning 3 years old and often exhibit abnormalities in cognitive functioning, learning, attention, and sensory processing, and whereas, according to the Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network, a program funded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, autism affects about 1 in every 36 children in the US and can affect anybody, regardless of race, ethnicity, or other factors. And whereas parents and relatives of individuals with autism are commended for their dedication and the sacrifice in providing for the special needs of individuals with autism, and whereas worker training programs that are tailored to the needs of autistic individuals are vital, as people with autism can be and are productive members of the workforce, exemplary members of the community when given appropriate support, training, and early intervention services. And whereas the US Congress, the House, and the Senate introduced resolutions on February 25th, 2008, recognizing the importance of autism awareness and the need to support individuals with autism and for their family members, the teachers, the physicians, and other professionals who care for individuals with autism. Hold on just a second. Okay. So let's do that again. Okay, whereas the US Senate and House introduced resolutions, a joint resolution in February 25th of 2008, recognizing the importance of autism awareness. We're here about autism awareness. And of the need to support individuals with autism and for supporting family members, teachers, physicians, and other professionals who care for individuals with autism. And whereas individuals with autism, like all others, should have the opportunity to realize their ambitions and to lead rewarding lives. Now, therefore, I, Juan Gonzalez III, Mayor of the City of San Leandro, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Autism Awareness Month in the City of San Leandro, as a symbol of our commitment to creating a culture of disability awareness and a culture of disability inclusion for all members of our community. So thank you for being here to accept this, and I encourage you to say a few words.
I've grounded my work in teaching with the belief and knowledge that students with autism are intelligent in their unique ways, and they thrive when they feel safe, when they feel included in their school, when they're happy and have fun, and when they just enjoy school. So I am happy to be here, and thank you for your time.
And for me, this is very personal because we have family members with autism. So thank you for all you do, particularly in SLUSD. Okay, so we're going to call up, I think, Nikki Washington. Is that correct? Or first we'll do our minute vote. We have to vote. And after that, we will have you come on up. So you can just hold on for just a second. Okay, Clerk Bunting, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The item before you this evening is a motion to appoint Nikki Washington to fill the at-large vacancy on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission.
Okay, do I have a motion? I'll move this item. She's my appointee. Councilmember Azevedo?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Gonzalez, a second by Azevedo to move forward with this nomination to approve appointing Ms. Washington to fill the at-large vacancy. We have already discussed this before, so I don't think we need further discussion, public comment, or anything like that at this time. So let us move to a vote.
Councilmember Bolt, your vote, please.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolt, are you there?
I said yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Votes are in. All ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Would you please move to swearing in Ms. Washington?
I, Nikki Washington, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of which I'm about to enter. Thank you. All right.
Okay, so at this point in time, just following our standard procedure, coming back to you, Ms. Bunting in particular, we would appreciate it if you could read out the votes. We know that it was unanimous, but just to follow our protocol, just say name, I, et cetera.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mayor, for calling that to my attention. On the motion to appoint, Councilmember Aguilar voted yes. Azevedo, yes. Councilmember Bolt, yes. Councilmember Simon, yes. Councilmember Viveros Walton, yes. Vice Mayor Bowen, yes. And Mayor Gonzalez, yes.
Thank you. So at this point in time, we will move to our consent calendar. Is there anything on the consent calendar that folks would like to pull for further discussion? Councilmember Aguilar.
I'd like to move the consent calendar.
Okay. Is there anything that someone would like to pull? Because I am going to pull at least one thing, but I just want to make sure that others have that opportunity. Okay. So seeing none, I would like to pull for a little bit of discussion, nothing too extensive, items 5B and 5C. 5B and 5C for a little bit of a discussion. So would you be open to amending your motion to reflect that?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got a motion by Aguilar to approve the consent calendar with the exceptions of 5B and 5C. Vice Mayor?
I will second that.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second. At this point in time, we will go to public comment on the consent calendar if we have any.
Mr. Mayor, we have one public comment online and no speaker cards in the room.
Okay, please proceed online.
Sorry, Mayor, make that 2 public comments online.
Thank you.
The first speaker is Douglas Spalding, followed by Jesse. Mr. Spalding, you should be able to unmute yourself.
There's the unmute button. Good evening, members of the council. I regret you're indoors. I'm still looking at some very nice light outside. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello? Can you hear me? You
Yes,
can't hear
we
me.
can hear you, Mr. Spalding.
Okay, my first point, I just want to recommend to everyone listening, go see Freaky Tales, the movie about Oakland, but also about the East Bay, especially if you hate Nazis. It's really very
We are currently on the consent calendar. Do you have an item for the consent calendar or comment?
calendar items that are not on the agenda. Is that right? Oh, the consent.
We are on item
calendar.
5 on the
I
consent calendar.
confused my comments with the public comment. Yes, item 5A. I apologize, Mayor. So it comes as no surprise. I want to comment on the military equipment item. I realize this is the second read, and it's gonna get voted. But I will stipulate one more time. I do not believe military equipment works to make our community safer. I don't see the need for us to have practically one assault rifle for every officer on the force. I don't think we need more than 75,000 rifle rounds. I don't think we need a Bearcat tank. But I do think, I neglected to say this when it came up for a first read. I do think that it should identify the military equipment coordinator within the department. And it's not clear from the organizational chart in the city pages who that is. If my memory serves me right, I believe it's Lieutenant Robertson, who also coordinates the SWAT team for our police department. I also would just say parenthetically, I cannot find a roster of members of the San Leandro Police Department. I would think it would be in the interest of transparency important to do that. I know, in my situation as a teacher, all the faculty members are published online. That's important so members of the public can look and see who's there, and should there be any skeletons in the closet, they can raise that and challenge, who the teachers are. Well, I think the same would be important about our police officers, even though I have a high degree of respect.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Mayor, that concludes the remainder of public comments. The other person lowered their hand.
Okay, so I'll close public comment at this time, and we'll come back. Any further discussion on these items? If not, please vote. Let's go to the motion. Let's vote on the motion.
Thank you. The votes are in. Councilmember Bolt, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. The votes for yes include Councilmember Bolt, Councilmember Simon, Councilmember Aguilar, Councilmember Azevedo, Councilmember Viveros Walton, Vice Mayor Bowen, and Mayor Gonzalez. So the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to discuss item 5A. And just, I think there was a 5B, sorry, my apologies. But with respect to 5A, the public commenter asked about who was the coordinator, and just to confirm, that is Lieutenant Robertson. So we do have that information for the benefit of the member of the public. So coming to item 5B in particular, so 5B addresses the installation of a library, I'll call them privacy pods. And to be clear, we call them privacy pods because of sound. There will be glass partitions so that we're able to see into the space. Curious about the reason for a contingency, because it is the installation of a well-established item. Shouldn't be that complicated. So can we have an explanation on why we need to set aside $24,000, $25,000 for a contingency?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask Library Director Brian Simons to join us and provide that responsive information.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Yes, the reason for the potential contingency is two factors. One of which is the building is 25 years old, and these pods are the size of rooms, and they need to be anchored to the floor, particularly the second story. And there's a structural engineer involved, and depending on what they find, it may require an alternate way to anchor these structures. We're having the structural engineer do scanning. So short of opening up the floor, we've determined everything we can up to that point. So that may be one possibility of what we might run into. The other is a more recent development, which is coming, which affects us because of federal practices now with the tariffs. So we may have a tariff put on this. The firm that we're working with is confirming if that's a yes or no, but in order to be safe, we thought we should have a contingency that could cover that.
Are there any questions by council members? Because I do have a couple of my own. Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Just the one question for the public as well. Can you share how how people will be able to use the pods? And obviously, I know that they are people are very excited to use them, and I want to make sure that more people can use them, and they will be they won't be ruined.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you for that question. So these are very similar to our study rooms we have at our Manor Branch facility. So we're going to use the same process that we use there that works quite well. The public can reserve these pods for 2-hour blocks at a time, up to 24 hours in advance. We find at the Manor Branch facility that these are so popular that they're packed back to back to back to back. So it really helps police itself because of the popular use of them. And also then our process, while it's not automated at this point, the upside of not automating it is we get to see each person that comes, and we get to have that interaction with them, so we know who's already been in the pods that day and who hasn't. And so it allows us to, it helps us to monitor the process. So I don't foresee that they will be destroyed, in part because they will be popular.
Councilmember Azevedo.
Yes. How many people could fit in each one of those pods?
So there's 4 4-person pods, and there's 2 1-person pods that will be going in. So at any given time, that's 18 people using them at once potentially. Now the 4 persons might have just 1 person in them because that's who reserved, but up to 4 are the large size.
And the hours, will they coincide with the library hours?
Correct. Every open hour we have, we will have the pods available.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Simon, please.
Yes, the pods are very popular at Manor Branch, so I'm glad to see these coming in. But just a question, are they able to expand? Like if you have 2 pods next to each other, can you open it up for, say, 8 people?
It's a good question. They're not built that way. So because of the way they're designed for structural integrity for seismic, they can't open up and connect that way. So yeah, just to answer your question simply, no, they aren't built that way.
Thank you. Glad to see them coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, I know that when we were dealing with some roads and we were trying to figure out what's underground, we talked about scanning. I think my particular concern is just we are in a fiscally tight situation. There's decreased federal funding on the horizon. And every time I see the word contingency, I think we're going to spend that money. So I'm trying to get some assurances that we're not going to spend that money, or that we can do something to maybe reduce costs someplace else so that we can really stay to a budget of $269,806.03.
Yeah, so I wish I could give you those very specific assurances. What I can say is, as things have developed, we made sure to look in other places in our budget to make sure we had the money for these. So we kind of skinnied back on a few other areas to make sure we could, to make sure this would happen, so we could go forward. That said, one of the things that we will be doing, working with this company, I mean, tariffs, I think, are out of our control, but the engineering side of it, we'll look at all options and ask for, are there, if they say, well, this one way we would normally do it isn't going to work, we're going to ask for multiple options.
The last thought that I'll leave you with is I'm assuming that these are pre-built. I mean, they're already pre-engineered. The pieces are sitting in a box someplace.
Correct. Yeah, they're prefabricated.
Prefabricated.
Yeah.
That's a better word. Thank you. So my ask to council, I'm just going to look down council roll to see if there's any interest. I am quite concerned about contingencies. My preference is that we really start going on a go-forward basis, whether we start this meeting, the next meeting, or 2 meetings, that we really look at contingencies very hard and require folks to come back and explain those contingencies as opposed to just pre-approving contingencies. So I'll just make a motion. My motion would be that we keep it exactly as written, except that we strike the contingency piece. If I get a second for that, then we'll put it to a vote. Is there a second for keeping item 2B as is, except for striking the contingency? And if there's a need for a contingency, it would come back and ask for it explicitly. Vice Mayor, questions or second? Either way.
Question. If I understand, part of the contingency is with what engineering funds to be able to put it into the ground, or if tariffs impact it, how much would that delay the process of being able to put the pods in, or would that, to put something back on the agenda for us to be able to approve the contingency?
So I think that's a question for the director.
Thank you. The tariffs, we would know fairly shortly and could get that on as soon as we could possibly get that on the next agenda. So wherever we are within the agendized cycle to get that on the agenda, that would be pretty easy to do. The engineering will be a little bit further down the road as the engineer gets scheduled. It's about a 9-week lead time once we sign the contract for the pods to be available. So the engineering will happen somewhere in there. Once we know that, then we would be able to schedule that. So it could delay maybe, I would say optimistically, a month once we know if we had to go down that road, maybe up to 2 months, depending on if we have to negotiate, which solution and that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. I understand and support what you're proposing, Mayor, especially to ensure that we're not always going above budget and spending more. I just also want to be mindful of not delaying projects, because I could also see this spiraling.
Thank you. At this point, we'll go to Councilmember Simon.
Question and comment. Question is the electrical included in these pods?
Yes, correct. So they're self-contained units, so they just need a hookup. And that's where they're being hooked up. The electrical already exists in the building. There will be electrical work that we're scheduling through a Public Works Department and electricians that they're arranging to connect that. But that is outside of this particular contract.
So to confirm, electrical is separate from the 294?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Separate. Okay. All right. And then from a contingency standpoint, I do recognize the importance of costs, and we've seen much higher than 9% previously, and 15, maybe even 20% contingencies. But I think 9% is relatively reasonable. Normal construction bidding projects. And I agree with the projects, because that staff time can start adding up waiting for this, because staff still has to get paid. So I do believe we should provide some type of contingency for staff. Comfortable with the 9.
What I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and withdraw the motion. I'm going to make the following comment. I'm surprised actually that electrical is a separate cost. I think that when we talk about projects, it should be the total cost. We just came out of a closed session where I think we heard some new numbers caught us off guard.
Okay.
I think you're going to put in pods. What's it going to cost? Is it $500,000? Is it 200,000? We need to know the cost because that electrical contract will have its own contingency, and before we know it, we'll get there. So that's number one. Number two is I think that we as a city, so I'm now turning to finance. I don't know if finance is back there someplace. I'll certainly turn to city management. We need to know which contracts are coming in over budget and which ones are coming in under budget. Because in theory, these good bids should be like right on the mark. Sometimes a little high, sometimes a little bit low. But if we're always running over budget, if we're always exercising contingencies, that means that the contract bids were not accurate. And so I really do want to be keeping a close eye on contract management. So with that being said, I will move this item and look for a second, just as written, 5B as written. Councilmember Aguilar.
I'll second.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Gonzalez, second by Aguilar. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Councilmember Bolt, if we could have your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. All votes are in. The yes votes include Councilmember Bolt, Councilmember Simon, Councilmember Aguilar, Councilmember Azevedo, Councilmember Viveros Walton, Vice Mayor Bowen, and Mayor Gonzalez. 7 votes, the motion passes.
Thank you for that. Councilmember Simon, did you have a further? Okay, perfect. At this point in time, I'd like to discuss briefly item 5C. And in particular, the question that arose for me out of 5C is I think that we as a council had approved a contract or a budgeted amount for about $500,000 with the Alameda County Sheriffs. Then we see this item requesting approval for a not to exceed $351,000, which left me completely confused relative to the $500,000. And so I'd like some description of what we have. Did we spend more than 500? This is an additional amount. So turning to you, Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your questions. I'm going to invite up to the dais Chief Averett to address these questions.
Good evening. So the contracted amount was for up to $500,000, and luckily we did not hit that mark. We actually hit $351,000. The reason why we're asking for this item this evening is because there was a discrepancy between the contract and the original staff report from last March.
Would you please elaborate on what that discrepancy is?
So the contract stated up to $500,000 and the staff report said up to $300,000, when both should have said up to $500,000. So it was a minor administrative error.
To be clear, I think in here we had budgeted 500. So maybe, does somebody remember what the resolution said? The authority, wasn't it granted 500,000? If anybody knows. So we're going to have a quick poll just to make sure, because I just want to make sure what it is that we approved. My recollection was 500. I'm getting some head nods, but we'll clarify that very quickly. So what I'm hearing is that we ended up at 351,000.
That is correct.
That's perfect. I don't think are there any other questions for our chief? Seeing none, we're going to do a little bit of research here. Thank you. That was a very clear answer. If there are no other questions or comments, I am going to offer a comment while city attorney is doing his research. Okay, so my comment on this item in general is that I always want to be clear about the total cost of things. And if there are pivots or adjustments, or I just want to make sure that each time, we're very, very clear. This is exciting news if we came in under budget, because that I think would make us all happy. So any luck on your end, city attorney? And sorry to put you on the spot. But as is, the total amount spent was $351,000, and what this essentially does is it approves that we spend $351,000, the extra to the extent there was any prior ambiguity. So I am willing to move this item forward as 5C as written.
I'll second.
Okay, so I've got a motion by myself and with a second from Councilmember Aguilar. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Councilmember Bolt, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. All votes are in. The yeses include Councilmember Bolt, Councilmember Simon, Councilmember Aguilar, Councilmember Azevedo, Councilmember Viveros Walton, Vice Mayor Bowen, and Mayor Gonzalez. 7 yes votes. The motion passes.
Thank you. So moving on to item 6, I don't believe we have any reports from city manager or city attorney today. Okay, we do not have. So let's move on to our public comments. This is a chance where folks from the public can comment on items that are not on this agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of this council. So how many speakers do we have tonight?
Mayor, we have 3 comment cards submitted for here in the room, and there are presently 2 hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, with that in mind, let us proceed in the room first.
Thank you. The first speaker is Leslie Garcia, followed by Mike Katz-Lacabe, followed by Leo T. West.
Start. Good evening, Mayor Gonzalez, council members. My name is Leslie Garcia. I'm a business owner here in San Leandro and a resident as well. I'm here to talk about our business signage. As you guys know, for the past couple months, we have been forced to take down some of our business signage. And this has affected a lot of us, especially now because the economy and our businesses are not doing so good. And I'll just quote from the regulation section 4.12, 1.104. It says, supplemental copies such as advertising of products, services, phone numbers, and website addresses not part of the business name is not allowed. So as a business owner, I want to see how am I not allowed to promote my products and services on my window. You know, these are very important things as a business owner. Just last week, I went most businesses around and I talked to them and I said, you know, has this affected you? Most of them said, yes, this has affected us a lot. And so I'm asking council members and mayor to please work with us. Let's come up with some common ground where we can put some signage to promote the bare minimum, which is our products and services. And so I'm all for that we have regulations. You know, I think we can only have 2 signs, 1 per window or something like that. I'm all for that. But at least give us the opportunity to promote our products and services, even if it's not part of our name. That way the community can know what we have to offer. But to rip down our signage, that has really affected our business community. That's it.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I'm just going to give you just a little bit. I think this might be the first time that you're here. When things aren't on our agenda, we're not really allowed to talk about them and explore with you.
Oh,
Please do follow up individually with us as your council members. Feel free to call me directly and interact. So we will continue this dialogue. Our absence of response doesn't mean we don't care.
Okay,
So that's just the way it works.
thank you.
The next speaker is Mike Katzlakabe, followed by Leo T. West.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, staff, and members of the public. First, I would like to express my disgust and disappointment with the assault on Councilmember Bowen by Fowler City Councilmember Daniel Para. It is yet another example of how much remains to be done in putting a stop to abusive behavior by men. I am so glad that Councilmember Bowen reported the assault and has spoken out about her experience. Unfortunately, the mere act of speaking out about this oftentimes results in a backlash, and I understand the hesitancy that there might be in reporting such actions. Next, while I'm glad to see the intense focus on the contingency for the library privacy pods, there have been multiple other opportunities to address fiscal concerns for contracts that come before the City Council. For example, it's been rare to see such concerns raised about the numerous change orders that normally come before the City Council to existing contracts. At least with a contingency, it's up front. Change orders, generally after the fact. And even more concerning are the numerous instances in which we award a contract for a sole source vendor without any competitive bidding at all. In those cases, how do you have any idea whether you use the public's money responsibly? Sometimes those sole source contracts cost more than $1 million. That's a lot of money at any time, including now. And lastly, given that ICE detainers are now being included in the National Crime Information Center, how will San Leandro Police handle situations in which immigration detainers are returned when a police officer encounters one of our residents? This is particularly important because, as we've seen, even legal immigrants are being detained and sent away for deportation. So I think that's something that, as we are a sanctuary city, we should be very much looking into and considering what's going to happen beforehand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Leo T. West.
The city is running a deficit of some $100 million, but the city council finds money to send 6 of its members to a vacation in Florida for a conference of U.S. cities. Now, if the big delegation from a small town didn't put San Leandro on the map, Councilmember Bowen, a frequent traveler with taxpayers' money, by announcing another scandal like the one of Zapata Padilla of some years ago, did. And nonetheless, on International Women's Month, I live in the district represented by Councilmember Bowen, who doesn't have time to answer emails addressing the issue of crime and vandalism in the district because she's traveling to this kind of resort most of the time with taxpayers' money, even receiving extra allowances because she is a prominent member of the Democratic Party. The voters must remember what interest Councilmember Bowen represents in next year's elections, as well as all the others who were in Florida.
Thank you. That is the final card for in-room speakers, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll close in room and we'll move online. Opening online public comment.
We have 3 hands raised. The first is Douglas Spalding, followed by Tina, followed by Emily Greco. Mr. Spalding, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Leave it to my good friend, the previous speaker, to criticize a woman who has reported being sexually assaulted. My comment goes back a few weeks to at least a few incidents of racist graffiti that popped up on San Leandro schools. I appreciate that the school district sent out a communique drawing attention to at least one of the incidents. I also appreciate the police chief and mayor coming out and speaking clearly against the presence of the graffiti. But let's not forget, this follows closely on the incident in February where Miss Sonia Reed's fence was also had racist graffiti scrawled on it. And you know, let's not downplay this as, you know, some gang activity or, you know, some kind of a bad joke. This is occurring precisely because of the bigot in the White House, who has the bigot in chief, who is going to war on DEI and signaling to the entire nation that he wants to make America racist again. Given our history in San Leandro, not too distant history of redlining and as a sundown city, and given more recent events, it's, you know, we're just about at the 5-year anniversary of the murder of Stephen Taylor at the hands of Jason Taylor. I think we always have to come out clearly and strongly and condemn racism each and every time it appears in whatever form it appears. I think it's somewhat akin to addictive behavior. You know, if you have an addiction, you get support, but it never quite leaves you. And I don't think that we will ever quite totally eradicate racism in San Leandro, but I think we need to treat it much more strongly as they say in Hayward.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Tina, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, my name is Tina Mihayescu. I would like to comment on behalf of City Council Member Bowen for her bravery at the last meeting to come forward to address the assault that was perpetrated against her. I know that was no easy task for her. What I'm left in total dismay about was how immediately afterwards Council Member Aguilar's awkward, flippant, and even jovial transition to pitch the State of the Union address was. The best way to describe it is it was total cringe. It shows a complete lack of empathy, human decency, and basic manners to not acknowledge in a meaningful way what his coworker is going through. I believe he owes her an apology, both privately and publicly, and I've often felt that Councilmember Aguilar was not a true civil servant. He comes across to me as a man with a lot of ego in the position and showmanship without a lot of depth. And I ask that my fellow San Leandro citizens, when it comes time to vote in new members to the council, we first and foremost elect people who have mastered basic life skills such as empathy and decency, and who want to be in this role truly to do good and not for selfish reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Emily. You can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, everybody, Mayor and members of the City Council. It's Emily Grego, President and CEO of the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. I'm here tonight because I want to support the business owner who you've heard from this evening, who is also a member of our Chamber of Commerce. They are requesting the signage code meet them in the middle. They're looking for flexibility that aligns with the city's goals. And I will say that as the efforts to move forward to present a cleaner and more cohesive visual identity for San Leandro, we have heard concerns that the signage code might be too restrictive for the range of business types and storefronts we have in our city. We've also heard, as we had with lots of other ordinances, that enforcement also appears to be a challenge, creating inconsistency and frustration. I know there's a lot of businesses working to be compliant, but then we see other businesses freely painting their names across their buildings without issue, such as the one that's across the street from our office. So this inconsistency highlights the need for a balanced approach. And I just want to be clear that we do support the city on, this cohesive and cleaning up of the San Leandro, this cohesive identity and cleaning up San Leandro. And, storefronts with boxes stacked in front and a bunch of stickers and neon signs, they aren't welcoming or professional. But we do believe that a business, when they present their information in a clear and well-designed way, it can contribute positively to their overall branding of the business. So we want to encourage you and want to say that we're happy to work with you in bringing some of these comments forward to the city from our business owners, and work for a way to create guidelines that are not only attractive and enforceable, but they're practical for all types of businesses and sizes so that they won't lose their customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that is our last public comment from Zoom.
Well, thank you. So with that, we will close public comment. And I think, was there anything that was sought in terms of clarification? I think these are all just statements, no questions asked here. Just encourage all of our public speakers to continue to interact with us and to share information, to meet us, chat with us, have coffee meetings, and we will move forward with some of your suggestions based on future discussions. At this point in time, we will move to item number 8 on our agenda. We have no public hearings, so then we go to item number 9. We have no informational presentations tonight, so then we'll move to item number 10, which is our action item set. So we're going to have, I think, 2 action items here because we moved 10A to the front. The first item that we will do, that we will undertake, is an action related to a prospective plaintiff and let's just say a settlement, a written agreement with that individual. So for this item, we've got basic introduction from Deputy City Clerk Sarah Bunting. And then I think we will also have Attorney Steve Nyo on this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. One moment while we pull up the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Mayor. Again, I'm Sarah Bunting, Deputy City Clerk. The item before you tonight is an update on the city's transition to district-based elections in response to a recent California Voting Rights Act, or CVRA, notice. The presentation will walk through how we got here today, what's on the immediate horizon tonight, including recommendation of adopting an agreement, and the next steps. As you'll recall, in 2024, the city received a notice letter from a law firm on behalf of their client, Mr. Robert Bulatao. The letter alleges that the city's current at-large election system dilutes the voting power of the city's Asian American community. The letter does not include the statistical data that supports the claim, but it does reference the city's past electoral history and outcomes for Asian American candidates. It's also important to notice that several other agencies have received similar letters in recent years, including from the same law firm. And the notice is a demand that the city transition to district-based elections in order to avoid litigation. The timeline here, apologies, it's kind of hidden on my screen. In January of this year, the City Council adopted a resolution of intention to make the transition. Adoption of the resolution triggers a 90-day period that's known as a safe harbor period, which allows the jurisdictions to take steps towards transitioning to the district elections. This temporarily shielding the agency from legal action. And as you can see, from January to March, city attorney has been meeting with the law firm that submitted the letter on behalf of their client. And today we are proposing entering into a written agreement that will provide that, extend the safe harbor period by an additional 90 days, which would give the city until July 5th to conduct hearings, obtain public input, and engage in a robust public process without risk of lawsuit. And the extension is provided under the Elections Code, but only if we enter into the written agreement by the current deadline, which happens to be today, April 7th. Leading into the written agreement, Mr. No, would you?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, you'll be before you is a resolution to approve a written agreement that extends this safe harbor by another 90 days on the condition that the city adopt an ordinance by July 5th, 2025, to move to district-based elections, subject to the voters approving a charter amendment in the primary election in 2026. By doing so, by adopting this agreement, the safe harbor will remain in place until the council adopts that ordinance, and it caps or keeps in place the safe harbor fees provision, which is that the Mr. Bulatow's council cannot seek more than 30,000 plus inflation for the statute, which the statute provides for the entire claim and resolution of the demand by Mr. Bulatow. So just for some context, the Voting Rights Act does allow a public entity, the city, to adopt a 90-day extension of the safe harbor. And the only requirement in the statute is that the council has to establish, or the city has to establish, district-based elections 6 months before the next general election. There is no requirement that the city move or adopt an ordinance before the charter amendment, but that is part of the negotiation. That's part of the consideration here before the council tonight to stay in the safe harbor period. And that means that the council has until July 5th, 2025 to conduct the additional public outreach and the 4 required hearings, and then to adopt the ordinance again, on the condition that the voters approve by charter amendment the move to district-based elections in the primary election of June of 2026.
Thank you. Looking now to the timeline, if the council elects to move forward with the written agreement, here's how the timeline would unfold. Within the next 10 days, the staff would post a schedule of the upcoming hearings related to the transition and begin outreach. In April and May, later in April and May, we would have our first 2 public hearings to receive public input on the transition. Draft map would be published in mid-May, May 12th, followed by a 3rd and 4th public hearing in May and June to gather more community feedback. And finally, keeping with this timeline, the City Council would vote on the adoption of the final map. All items would be complete by July 5th in accordance with the extended safe harbor period. Staff recommends the City Council approve the written agreement with the prospective plaintiff. Doing so would extend the safe harbor period and reduce the city's risk of litigation and exposure to legal costs. With that, staff is available if there are any questions.
Okay, so we'll take questions, and we'll take public comment, and then we'll come back for discussion. Are there any questions? Councilmember Viveros Walton, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the staff report and for all of the work. I just have a couple of questions regarding what CVRA requires. And I want to make a distinction. I have questions around the distinction on what is being agreed to because of the demands of the plaintiff versus what is actually required of CVRA. Can you explain why the timeline is so compressed and why it has to be done before July 5th?
The statute actually contemplates that this, you may recall, council member, that there was the pre-litigation notice, the letter that was sent in November. If that letter was actually sent in January 2026, the timeline makes sense. So the CVRA contemplates that the demand would be sent in a much tighter timeline than we actually, the council, the city was given. So instead, Mr. Bulatow submitted this demand last November, and there's at least 18 months between that letter and when the voters would actually decide on moving to district-based elections in June 2026. So the timeline for public hearings is compressed to the first 180 days after the notice of intent to move, which was the council adopted in January. But then once that's over, you have basically almost a year before it gets to the voters. So it really was triggered, this timeline was triggered by when the prospective plaintiff, Mr. Bulatow, decided to give us this notice. And the CVRA timelines followed from that date.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the safe harbor provision, specifically around some of the context that you've provided around some other cities that have may not necessarily have disagreed with the overall intent of the CVRA, but rather the process. Can you talk a little bit about what those expenses look like for other cities who have?
Yes, there's a very well-known case out of the city of Santa Monica that fought a claim like this that went to the Court of Appeal and challenged it on appeal and lost and faced millions of dollars in fees that my recollection is that it was not covered by any sort of like insurance policy or JPA. So this is money coming out of pocket, out of the general fund of the public agency. That's just one example, but these are not uncommon claims. The civil rights, the Voting Rights Act exists, and there are litigators that pursue these claims across the state.
Thank you. My other question is regarding the actual data. Did Mr. Bulatow's counsel provide any kind of data to support their claim?
There was no expert data that was shared with the city on whether or not Asian American voters or voters in San Leandro are racially polarized. There's just an allegation based on the number of city council members that have been elected and paired with the election system, which is an at-large system that the city has. That's basically that was basically the argument in the demand.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Seeing no other questions, I'll turn to City Attorney. I know that we are looking to perhaps tweak the language. Should we do that during the comment section of this?
We should do it during the motion, if the motion.
During the motion. Okay, perfect. So then let's go to public comment on this item.
Mayor, we have no comment cards in the room for this item, and we have 2 raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, please proceed to the raised hands on Zoom.
The first speaker is John Minot Schwartz, and the second speaker is Douglas Spalding. John, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, council members, Mr. Mayor. This is John Minot Schwartz. Thank you
I am glad that this item is moving forward. It seems to be moving in the right direction. I've said why I support moving to district-based elections, and I think the city will agree that this is a good direction. I did want to point out something that I don't think implicates the motion you're going to make tonight, but I would ask that you look at it closely over the next several months. I continue to doubt that a ballot measure to put to the city voters of implementing this change is whether this is a good idea or a good use of funds. I know that it seems on its face, it's changing the charter. Seems on its face like something for the voters. However, I believe if you put the question legally to the attorney's office, I think you're going to find that if the voters disapprove of the change, which I don't think they will, but if they did, I don't think that would put the city at any less liability. I think the city would have to go to court if the voters said no, and would either face fines or be forced to change, regardless of what the vote said. I'm not a lawyer, but this is my understanding that other charter cities have implemented the change by city ordinance because they were implementing state law. If it's the case that no matter which way the vote goes, that you would have the same outcome, then I think it would be a bad use of funds to actually put it on the ballot. So I hope that you look at that carefully, because I know you're looking carefully at good use of city funds. But tonight, thank you for moving forward with this. Good evening.
Thank you. The next speaker is Douglas Spalding. You may unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. Well, I applaud Mr. Bilatow, and I think this is an important development in San Leandro. I think it both will help to increase representation on the council and in the mayorship, as well as reduce the barriers to office, including cost and other barriers. I think this is a good course of action to save money potentially from litigation. I just think it's unfortunate that we didn't have the foresight to implement something earlier, given the the number of litigations that have taken place or been threatened in the city of California. It seems like we had plenty of advance notice. I'm happy that the timeline is compressed. I think it's optimal to make this change prior to the next citywide elections in June of 2026. But I have the same question that John Mino just raised, which is, does this require a vote of the citizens of San Leandro, which is a costly prospect as a special election, or is it just something that you all can do by vote of the council? I think that also would be optimal and pretty clean. And I think that by doing the outreach that you're proposing to do, that you can create plenty of cover for yourselves. I do have a question about who is developing materials for the outreach sessions and whatnot. Does that involve the law firm that is making the suit, Mr. Bilatow, other perspectives, or is it simply the city's perspective? I would hope there's not going to be some poison pill in there, because I think if it does go to a vote and we don't pass, that's really bad news. Thank you.
Thank you. Your time is up. Mayor, that's our last public comment.
So we'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to council for additional discussion, if any. Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to follow up on Councilmember Veros Walton's questions earlier to the attorney. As this ordinance that we are looking to pass in the next 90 days is part of the negotiation to be able to keep our costs at the cap, correct?
That's the condition, that if the ordinance is adopted by July 5th, the cap would be 30,000 adjusted for inflation.
And once we pass an ordinance, there will not, is that it? There could be no more conditions that Mr. Bilatow and his attorney would try to use against the city?
Unless the voters don't approve the charter amendment.
And so if we pass this ordinance, can you clarify for me, City Attorney, about how we actually make a change to the city charter? No, even with this ordinance, we still have to ask the voters to vote on this.
That is our recommendation because of the charter as the city's charter document. It is our guiding document for the city. So we don't want to have anything in the city charter that is at cross purposes with any language that's in any ordinance.
Okay. And we will obviously be doing outreach in the next 90 days. But prior to the June election in 2026, maybe for the deputy city manager, we would still need to do outreach to our voters, to the residents, to be able to vote on this. So we would need to spend more time and we'll need to spend more time and more money so that the voters will actually know what they're voting on in 2026, because this outreach now is just for the ordinance for the next 90 days.
So there will be two types of outreach. One is getting community outreach around what do they want to see. And then we have to pass an ordinance no later than July, was it 2nd?
5th.
6th, okay. 5th, okay. And so we're being informed by the public. And then apart and separate from that would come educating the broader public, not just the 50, 100, 25, whatever the number is that show up to share their thoughts. That would be phase 2.
Got it. I'm hoping a little more than 50 or 100 people will engage, but I understand with a truncated timeline that might be difficult. Mayor or Deputy City Manager, I have not received, I've spoken to constituents and I have had conversations with City Manager Cameron about district-based elections. I am curious, Mayor or Deputy City Manager, if the city has received emails from Mr. Bulatow prior to his bringing this lawsuit about district-based election. I have looked through my emails and I did not find any he never sent any to me.
Okay, so I'll go to Deputy City Manager first and then come to Legal Counsel. Prior to receiving the CVRA notice that we received, are you aware of prior communications with the city?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Bowen, for your question. To my knowledge, I'm not aware of emails from him on this specific topic prior to that. But with that said, I would offer to opportunity to do a thorough research as well to verify that. But offhand, I'm not aware of it, but we can double check that and follow back up with you all to verify with certainty.
Ken, we'll check with City Attorney just if you're aware of any communication with the city prior to the written notice that we received.
At this moment in time, Mayor, I'm not aware, and I agree with the Deputy City Manager. We would just, if that's the council's wish, we'd look into it deeper to see if there's any prior communications.
Thank you.
And then the final question that I have is, and this question request, are we able to are we able to get the demographic data of the ethnicities of voters in San Leandro and how they vote?
So I'm going to start with Deputy City Manager. If you are aware whether we have data on actual votes cast by ethnicity.
That would require something we'd have to look into, based on my knowledge.
Thank you. And I just want to make one comment, especially given the claims is, as an Asian elected and the first Asian woman to be elected in the city of San Leandro, and the A and HPI population is the largest ethnicity group in San Leandro. I am very cognizant of the importance of having that voice. And so I want to make sure that when we do this outreach as well in the next 90 days, and certainly for education in the next year, that we do reach out to the Asian population, and I would offer up my service in any way possible for that.
Councilmember Aguilar, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. I would also like to, piggyback off what Vice Mayor Bowen had mentioned with regards to reaching out to the various ethnicities, whether it be those who speak Vietnamese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Tagalog, those in our Asian population. But as far as a comment, I would, I'd say this is, there are a lot of cities that are being sued up and down the state of California. Excuse me. I think most recently was Dublin, who was actually brought forth the case with regards to this particular matter. And I'd like to move forward with a recommendation to adopt a resolution. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution that approves and authorizes the city manager to execute a written agreement with prospective plaintiff Robert Bulatow to extend the safe harbor period in consideration of prospective plaintiff's requirement for the city council to present and vote on an ordinance establishing district-based elections within the safe harbor period.
Thank you. Anything else at this time? That's it. Okay, perfect. I'm going to go to Councilmember Viveros Walton.
I wasn't ready to second a motion, but if anyone wants to second it, I would have comments.
Why don't you comment and then someone can second in just a little bit.
I just wanted to offer some comments to kind of paint the questions that I had asked earlier. And I think in overall, I'm supportive of district elections. I think for me, the process that we're going forward is not one that is particularly transparent and allows for the public to, I feel, it's a really compressed timeline, specifically when we are trying to reach communities who are multilingual or monolingual. In my previous role as the city's communications manager, it's a really tall order. And in addition to that, having been part of 2 redistricting processes in 2 jurisdictions, there's complexities to the mapping and the boundaries and ensuring that we're not separating communities of interests. And I'm just really concerned about our ability to give this process the time and respect, because we truly do honor, and I think I can't, I can't speak for my colleagues, I'll speak for myself. But this is truly, I think, one of the most kind of sacred things that we have in local government is who we vote for and how we vote. And although this might seem like a process that is kind of clerical, and it seems it's coming off and it's landing, at least for me, it's landing as a clerical process thing, but it's actually much larger than that. It's changing a voting practice that the city has had for a long time. And I agree that it should be changed to district election so that we are voted by the folks who are our neighbors. And I'm just really concerned that we are putting in a process that is not respectful of the intent of the California Voting Rights Act, which is to provide a voice and agency to folks who historically have been marginalized and don't have the access to vote. So I support the motion, and I'll go ahead and second it, but I'm really concerned about the compressed timeline and our inability to reach monolingual speakers, to which Mr. Bulatow alleges he is mostly concerned about, specifically the Asian American community. And I think many of us here have access or have spoken to, because we're part of those districts, or as we walk and talk to residents from across the city, it is, I'm really concerned about the process that we are essentially being forced into, that is not necessarily being mandated by the California Voting Rights Act. And I don't think that the process that we're going through actually aligns with the intent of this really important, sacred law to me. So I'll go ahead and second the motion. And I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Welcome to Councilmember Azevedo, please.
Yes, it's about time Saliandro makes the step, getting past its racist past. I believe this is a step forward because we vote on the whole city votes on every district. So only some areas that vote the most represent the city. I believe all districts should be represented by the voters. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing nobody else, I've got a couple of comments. And then the resolution itself has a mistake in it, from my perspective. We talked about it a little bit in closed session. I'd like to clean up that language, but first I'd like to give my thoughts on the topic. I'll start with having met with elected officials from across the state. People compliment us on this interesting balance that we bring. We as a city bring a balance that says you must reside in the district that you represent, but you must think about the city as a whole because everyone in the city will vote for you. We have seen that in some of the decisions that we've made here. We've seen that in the outreach by council members across districts. And I personally think that that's quite healthy for us to be understanding the concerns of the city and representing the entire city, as well as individual districts. And our current system basically provides that balance. It would be terrible if we end up with a situation where a majority of districts disadvantage certain other districts because they vote in a block and don't even need to worry about voters from those districts. So that's the part that I'm struggling with the most within this. I look at the diversity on this council. We have a very diverse council. And when I hear or read the arguments that were made, arguments were weak arguments. And in particular, the lack of support by the potential plaintiff of an Asian American in our last election in 2022. It's like, oh, so you did not support the Asian candidate. So how does that play out? So all of these things yield a lot of complexity for me, particularly since there's no analysis presented. There's assertions of problems in our city that when I look down the council, I don't really see problems on my council. I don't see it dominated by one particular gender, one particular sexual orientation, one particular racial group, one particular ethnicity. So I think we really do need to hear from our voters to see what do the voters think. And I'll close but with this. I find it ironic that some of our public speakers that are most interested in democracy and in hearing from voters might contemplate that we not bring a charter amendment to the voters. The people of San Leandro, a highly diverse community that consistently comes together to display kindness for one another. So I'll just leave it with that. In terms of the clarification on language in the resolution, I believe, City Attorney, that you have a slight tweak in the proposed language.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We would propose to the motion and the motion maker in the second, on the first paragraph of the resolution, it would read as follows, and I'll read it into this record. It should read, whereas the City of San Leandro currently conducts its city council elections using a hybrid system in which the city is divided into 6 districts where registered voters in each district nominate candidates on a district basis, comma, voted on an at-large basis, comma, while the mayor is elected by all voters citywide, semicolon, and. That would be the paragraph for the first resolution, first whereas clause of the resolution.
So going to the motion maker, Councilmember Aguilar, is that acceptable to you?
Yes, I would like to
add that language to the resolution, to the motion that was made.
Perfect. And is it acceptable to the seconder?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so we've got a motion by Councilmember Aguilar with a second by Councilmember Veros Walton to adopt a resolution as amended through the discussion here with City Attorney. Seeing no further discussion, please vote.
Councilmember Bolt, your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Votes are in. Yes votes include Councilmember Bolt, Councilmember Simon, Councilmember Aguilar, Councilmember Azevedo, Councilmember Viveros Walton, Vice Mayor Bowen, and Mayor Gonzalez. 7 yes votes. The item passes.
Okay, thank you, Council. Moving to item 10C, we're looking to to approve our updated City Council handbook. At this point in time, we'll have Deputy City Clerk Sarah Bunting present to us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One moment while I pull up the presentation. Good evening again. The item before you tonight is an update to the City Council handbook that is based on input from the City Council and discussions at the City Council Rules Committee at meetings held in December of last year and February of this year. A variety of changes have been discussed and are incorporated for your review and consideration. As outlined here on the slide, they range in nature from policies around a code of ethics, how the vice mayor is selected, tweaking the travel and training budgets, an acknowledgement for council members to sign complete that they've read and understand the policies, and a few other updates. In particular, one of the items that was requested by the City Council was the addition of consequences for violating the handbook after the adoption of Resolution 2024-138 last year, which pertains to the council's internal discipline policy. The next section containing updates is a code of ethics for City Council members, including a variety of ethical-based perspectives and ranging from conflict of interest, use of public resources, accountability. That's pages 9 through 12 in the revised document. The next major section with proposed edits is regarding the selection and role of the vice mayor. The language states that the role would be based on, nominations would be based on seniority, defined as the date the council member is sworn in and whether or not they've served as vice mayor before. And if there's a tie, the nomination may be deferred or decided by a random draw. There's also proposed edits around the city's strategic organizational training account. The section outlines the use of the account and provides just over $17,000 annually for participation in long-term training programs. And council had requested clearer eligibility criteria, which are now included as shown in the red lines. On pages 17 and 18, you'll find updates to clarify the structure of the city council budgets including tech, travel, apparel, and how they are allocated. Also added are details around reimbursements, amounts, clarified process for booking conference accommodations and flights, and the changes are intended to support better budgeting and transparency practices. Here you can see the specific proposed language. The final substantive change would be a handbook acknowledgement. It's a form that would, as you can see displayed on the screen here, it documents that the city council members read and received and acknowledged and agreed to abide by the handbook and its principles. There's also a handful of general cleanup items, reorganization, little spacing, grammar, those kinds of edits. You will see those as well. And with that, staff is available if there's any questions.
Okay, and so what I'd like to do with our time here, and I think as you've read it, you've probably identified a few typos here and there, merged words, et cetera. I prefer not to do all the grammatical stuff here tonight. We can pass those to Ms. Clancy and Ms. Bunting to just take care of that purely grammatical stuff. But if there are questions about what's here, or there's items you'd like to see done differently, change some wording, that would be a good use of time. But if there, so first let me see, are there questions? If there are really no questions, we can save the discussion until after public comment. So go with questions, Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. For the city council member handbook acknowledgement, is that an acknowledgement that council members are signing on an annual basis to re-acknowledge that, because we potentially make changes to the handbook every year?
So I'll start with Ms. Bunting. See if you had some thoughts on that and can come back to Attorney or City Deputy City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor. I think that's a good question. I'm not aware of how frequently the acknowledgement would be signed. Perhaps another staff person has more information on what was discussed and envisioned.
If there's none, we can take it away as an action item to clarify. I'm not seeing any clear thought on that. Do you have a preference that you'd like to express?
I think that it would be important to be able to sign it on an annual basis, just like we do with a conflict of interest, as part of a nonprofit or other organizations.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councilmember Aguilar, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. In looking at the strategic organizational training portion, the program that is being proposed, annual cost is now $17,900. So I would propose that change in that with regards to training fund. And then with regards to my question with regards to action of public interest, I think as the LGBT community is constantly being attacked, and with our current administration, my concern is that colleagues or the community with regards to this handbook can personally attack myself and file a complaint against my sexuality or my interest, of which I do outside of work hours. And the ethics code is saying that, outside of city council, you represent the city, which is when I'm here, when I'm on the clock, I'm on the clock. But when I'm out doing whatever I need to do to support, abortion rights, human rights, LGBTQ rights, transgender rights, I do not want to be subjected to this handbook, which that language includes being on the clock 24 hours a day. I don't get paid for that. I am here to serve the community. And this is just what I do. I think in that sense, I wouldn't want to subject anybody to going out and living their own life how they please. And I feel like that's something with that language we should not be subjected to.
can you remind me which page that is, please?
Action, public interest. Sorry, I wrote it down. I will need to look through it to find it since I'm being put on the spot.
No worries. So we could just come back, right? Just flip through it and we'll keep going with questions. So I think your point is well taken. Other questions at this time? Seeing no questions, let's go to public comment because I think we'll come back for further discussion.
Mayor, we have received no cards from speakers here in the chambers, and there are no hands raised.
I will close public comment, then come back to the council for discussion, beginning with Councilmember Simon.
Yes, thank you. I would like to motion to table this item to the first meeting in May. I'm not comfortable with this language, some of which Councilmember Aguilar has pointed out. I have other concerns as well. I do believe that we need more time as council than the few days that we've been provided here. And I'm requesting the courtesy of more time to discuss this with my colleagues as well as staff, as we've only had 3 work week days to look at this information. So that is my motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion from Councilmember Simon to table, the second from Councilmember Aguilar to a day certain, which would be first meeting in May 5th. Is that the correct date?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it is not a debatable motion, i.e. we really can't discuss, there's not much to discuss. It would have to be really like a point of order or something at that level. We can't talk about pros and cons of it. It's very, go ahead, Councilmember Viveros Walton.
I guess I just, I want to be supportive of my colleague.
Can't discuss.
It's just, I have questions about actual concerns they have.
Okay, Councilmember Azevedo, questions?
I'm just calling on the vote.
There is no further discussion on this item. Let me just double check. And because there really is no discussion. So Councilmember Bolt, I'm just going to go to you very quickly to say, is there a clarification? Because this is not a debatable motion. So recognizing Councilmember Bolt.
Thank you. No, my hand was up because I had a question about something, so I'm in favor of it. So we could vote.
Okay. Please proceed to vote.
Councilmember Bolt, if we could have your vote, please.
Yes.
Thank you. The votes for yes include, let me clarify, the motion to table the item to May 5th. On the motion, the yes votes include Councilmember Bolt, Councilmember Simon, Councilmember Aguilar, Councilmember Azevedo, Councilmember Viveros Walton, and Mayor Gonzalez. So 6 yes votes and 1 no vote. Vice Mayor Bowen. The motion passes.
Okay, so at this point in time, we will move on from this item. We will bring this back. It will be on the May 5th agenda, and we would ask that all clarifications be sought before that day so that we can take action. So now we're moving on to item number 11. Am I correct? On our agenda, let's find the agenda. Item number 11, council request to schedule future agenda items. Do we have any? Yes. Councilmember Azevedo.
Okay, I have 2. Well, one of is I want to revisit our sign ordinance for businesses and for our city, so we can look into that. The other one is I want to look into what we received from Frank Montano about that good neighbor residential law with noise ordinance. And look to see what ordinance we already have for noise ordinance and compare it with this and see if we can tweak it or something. Because Madera just did a good one where it's effective and they're giving people fines and if they keep on having the music on. So yeah, I'd like to look into this. Those are the two items. Thank you. And they're not emergency.
Thank you. So now we're at anybody else on a future agenda item? Councilmember Regular, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. I received a sample resolution from a constituent, Eric Gutierrez Prado, with regards to supporting a resolution to support straight transit funding for San Leandro. So I will forward that resolution to my colleagues to take a look at.
Okay. Anybody else at this time? So let's move to item number 12. We have any announcements? Councilmember Viveros Walton.
Thank you. I've been reflecting a lot from our meeting on March 18th. And I want to speak to what happened at the end of the meeting. On March 18th, Vice Mayor Bowen courageously stood up for herself and for many women who have suffered the kinds of attacks and violations that many women still face. And I want to talk to both myself and to my colleagues around intent and impact. I want to assume positive intent, but in my effort to not take space, because she courageously shared some very difficult, traumatizing experience, that I didn't want to say the wrong thing, and I didn't want to take space when it wasn't, when I wanted to do the right thing. And so that was my intent, but the impact of me staying quiet and not voicing my disappointment about how that meeting ended has really stayed with me. And I did not publicly support her, even though privately she and I talked about it, but publicly how that landed and publicly what the impact that had was that I was not supportive of my colleague. And I want to apologize. And I know that I will continue to be upset with myself for not speaking up and for not standing with you, Vice Mayor, on March 18th. And I'm upset with myself for not speaking up, but never again. I stand with you. I support you. And I want to thank you for sharing a very difficult experience and for standing up for so many of us who have experienced things like that, but just haven't been in a position to actually do something about it. She courageously went to Washington, D.C. and did her work. She did her work. She represented San Leandro in the best way possible. And I continue to be impressed by your strength and your courage that it took for you to say what you did and for standing up for so many of us. So I just want to apologize for that. And I want to apologize for the impact that my silence had. And I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilmember Bolt next, followed by Councilmember Bowen again. Okay, so I'm going to start with Councilmember Bolt.
Yes. Thank you, Councilmember Viveras Walton. I too was silent in the moment. And I honestly didn't know what to say when I was listening to the words that Vice Mayor was saying. So to Vice Mayor Bowen, I too am proud of your ability to read that statement and not break down. I have no idea what you are going through, what you went through, what you're going to continue to go through. And I am also upset with myself because I do realize in the moment at the last meeting, I'm hoping that the words that were said after were just because I think we were all in shock. We want to be there with you. We want to support you. Maybe we didn't know what to say. And I am upset with myself that I couldn't stand up and bring light and maybe just push pause for a second. Because as a member of the community said earlier, we moved off of a very deep and tragic situation that you're going through, and it turned really light. And in my heart, I don't believe that was the intent. If it was, then I am wrong for not saying something in the moment. But I truly stand with you. I want to support you. I want to give you anything you need as you go through this. I believe the rest of the council members want to do the same. So thank you, Councilmember Viveras Walton, for saying this now, for allowing me to also follow in your steps, and apologize to you, Vice Mayor Bowen, for the way that our council adjourned after your statement last council meeting.
At this point in time, I'll go to Vice Mayor Bowen.
Thank you, Mayor. That when I queued in after Councilmember Viveras Walton, that was not what was on top of mind. I have some policy reports, but I just want to say thank you so much, Councilmember Viveras Walton, for your words and for being authentic and sharing that support. The reason that I did what I did was not just for me, but it was for the women that I know and the women that I don't know that have experienced these things. And it was for my daughter, and it was for your daughter, and it was for all of the moms that have reached out to me since then and that have spoken to their daughters about my experience. And I'm hopeful that what happened to me won't happen to somebody else, even if it's just one person, but if it can give others strength to be able to speak up, then I'm willing to go through this. And I would be lying if I was not broken after my statement and I was not offended and deeply hurt by Councilmember Aguilar's immediate response. He was there that evening, and the fact that he responded in that way is incredibly upsetting. I really appreciate the council members on this council that have reached out since then. And it is going to be a long process. And I think that as council members and representatives of this community, it is incredibly important for us to represent everybody in this community. And that means the women and girls that are in this city. And so I would encourage us to have conversations with the women and children in our lives right now. And what I said is public, and it's public so that it could be a learning. And so you can use me as an example because it is incredibly important to be able to speak up. And then I will send my, I'll just say very quickly on the record, that I attended Cal City's policy meetings, and I will just email it to the city manager, so she has the bills that I took notes of.
Going to Councilmember Aguilar, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. I just wanted to address, I think, when council member had spoke at the last council meeting, Vice Mayor Bowen, I had cued in to talk about, hey, State of the City address. And I think, the animation of the mayor just kind of exacerbated, what currently had happened. I don't think, none of us were expecting to hear what Vice Mayor Bowen had experienced. And I think in just listening to get the message out of what's going on and what I had cued in before Vice Mayor Bowen had shared, I wanted to say that, I support Vice Mayor Bowen. I know women should have to go through that or experience assault as somebody who has been assaulted for being gay, as somebody who has been publicly harassed, especially in this dais, by public comments. I know firsthand what it's like. I just wanted to publicly state that, it wasn't my intent to sideline this. But, like many of my other council colleagues, we were not expecting to hear that. And, no woman should have to experience that, although it happens a lot. But, my apologies if it was translated in a way that was not supportive. And so I just wanted to step in to say, I'm sorry about, the interpretation or how this was delivered, but that is never my intent. I just wanted to, publicly state that I support you and that no one should ever have to experience what I've experienced as a gay man, especially as a woman, a female, to have, or whoever, any type of person that makes you feel uncomfortable. So my apologies.
Councilmember Riveros Walton, please.
I just want to respectfully want to address your comment, Councilmember, because acknowledging, I think what I just shared about intent and impact, you still have not apologized for the impact that your comment had, regardless of the intent. The impact it had was dismissive and tone deaf. And I just want to respectfully tell you how that landed, that I will assume best intent. And the words we say have impact that we may not have meant, but that's the impact it had. And I still did not hear an apology for the impact that your words had, rather than I apologize for the misinterpretation of the words. So with grace and with love, I hope that it is a teaching moment around intent and impact, and that you apologize for the impact regardless of the intent that you originally had. And I'll just leave that there.
We'll do this one last one, and I hope that we can kind of wrap this up. Thank you. Councilmember Aguilar, because it's not a discussion situation, but I'll give you this grace.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. I wanted to apologize for the impact, and I know, a lot of us are feeling guilty. Like I have, like I said, we weren't anticipating, and then just listening, it was a shock. And so, Councilmember Viveros Walton, I do understand, and I apologize for the impact to Councilmember Bowen that may have had, or how it may have been perceived. That wasn't. I think the silence was something that needed to be addressed, and I think most of us, have addressed that. And so, I just wanted to apologize to Councilmember Bowen and apologize with regards to the impact.
Okay. So one of the sensitivities is this is not an agendized item. So we're trying to navigate this gently we're each really sharing what we experienced. So I'm going to give a couple of quick things. First, on this specific topic, as Vice Mayor knows, I was there from the beginning with respect to this challenge. And in retrospect, seeing what happened on Monday night, that final moment could have been handled better, period, full stop. That's what led me to write my letter to the editor and make it very clear where I stood on this topic and that I have been there at her side from the very beginning, literally from the very beginning. And so I'm hoping that this all takes us to a better place as a council. Without changing very quickly to something that's on a completely different topic, I would like to encourage everybody, if you're not already attending the San Leandro Scholarship Foundation, one of the things that's important is our collaboration with our schools, and in particular supporting graduating seniors. The Scholarship Foundation has been really supporting many San Leandro students over decades and decades and decades. And so if you're not already attending, I encourage you and other members of the community to attend on Thursday night. Anything else? What time is that? I think it's at
The silent auction and the cocktail start at 6, dinner's at 7, keynote speaker at 8:30. It's at the Senior Community Center. And I have space on my table if you need space.
There you go. Okay, with that, I think I did want to clarify one last thing. We do have a process for bringing things forward that we've adopted where we want people to put things in writing and make clear what it is that they're looking for. So we've got city manager online who has made a request that I think is just, can we just do our process, right? Can we please, for anything that we want to go ahead and move forward for item 11, can you please re-request them at a future meeting and just use the established process to submit the form? You can submit that tomorrow and it'll be in the queue for next time. That way later we don't end up with a weird situation. Well, why did you do it that time but not this time? Okay, so thank you everybody for following process. Thank you everybody for showing lots of grace tonight to each other. So with that, in full recognition of Autism Awareness Month, please think about those in the community who share that trait and provide a little bit of extra love and support to those families. So we are now adjourned and it is 8:59.